ba ako? Hindi po sa lahat narinig po ba ako? Hello. Hello, good evening. Okay po ba? Narinig po ba ako?
Sa akin, ate, mahina. Ikaw. Sa akin po, mahina ka. Ewan ko, baka ako lang yung bingi. Ako lang may diferensya sa tainga.
Okay, yan po ate. Okay na po? Lakas na po ba?
Maririnig kita. Siguro nga, may problema yung headset ko.
Good evening po, sir. Albert, Madam Secretary dito. Welcome to our Christian's Day. Allow me to share my screen. Sing our synagogue anthem. Start our evening session. Let's have opening prayer. Okay, I request Ate Celia for
Ako ba, ate?
Marinig eh.
Okay, let us pray, brothers and sisters. Good evening to you, all most loving heavenly parents and victorious parents, our parents of heaven, earth, and humankind. Today, heavenly parents, once again we are gathered as one family on the 15th day of the fifth batch of this online Divine Principle Seminar, Heavenly Parents Suites. We are undertaking together. I would like then to humbly implore for your divine intervention and presence to be amidst us all, for us to be able to not just prepare artistically but to open up our hearts and minds to learn together, and somehow um, among our participants could really reflect on uh, and together with us on this learnings that we're going to do. Kindly use also our lecturers, Heavenly Parents, to become a true convener of your words, Heavenly Parents, of truth and peace. Not only externally but internally, Heavenly Parents, as individual, so that we can truly become an instrument in realizing your original ideal, Heavenly Parents, of creation. Thank you so much for this great opportunity of getting together, and thank you for this platform that you had bestowed upon mankind, Heavenly Parents. And thank you also for the great wisdom that you have bestowed to our elders and brothers and sisters. And for this Divine Principle online learning to transpire, Heavenly Parents. And we pray that maybe all of us can really be able to not just reflect but embody this in our daily activities and in our daily life of faith. Thank you for unconditionally loving us and for trusting us absolutely, for believing in us that we can really become a people whom you can entrust your will, Heavenly Parents. Don't worry, as much as we are together and we are still alive, we will do our best to always remind each other and help one another to really do our respective individual personal responsibility, Heavenly Parents, as siblings and as a family. Thank you once again for everything. I would like to humbly offer and report all this in my name to be the person of this family. True.
Good evening once again, parents, leaders, brothers and sisters. So welcome po sa lahat po sa participants ng batch 5. Ilang minutes
Hinay kay kate.
Unmute ka din.
okay na po ba, ate?
Tapos mahina.
Yan, okay na po ba?
Yung mic nung nilapit.
Yan. Okay na po ba? Yan, okay na?
Yung volume dyan. Yung volume. Dyan mismo sa mic.
Ano na siya, phone? Ano na siya? Yan. Okay na po ba? Nakasi po ba? Okay na? Mic test? Hello, mic? Hello, mic? Ano natin sa mic?
Lakasan mo na lang konti boses mo, Munems. Medium lang yung
Cute kay imong tingog ate mo kay.
Opo. Hello po.
Yung mic na pala nasa likod.
Okay na
Yes,
po
okay
ba?
na. Okay na yan.
Ikaw ba? Hello, okay na po ba, kuya?
Ayan na, Day. Okay na, Day.
Sorry po na ano po, miss ano. Ano bago sa mic niyo. So once again, thank you so much for waiting sa patient po, brothers and sisters. Pubulo na ako. So formally begin. So allow me to share my screen first. Silan tayo dito. Galing oh. Okay. So, yan. Reminders for everybody. Okay. So, yun. Diretso tayo sa 6th batch kasi wala tayong naano pa na 5th batch. So, this is our 21-day online divine principle lecture series. Then, basic meeting guidelines. First, yung time. Yung starting po natin ng time. Then, second, yung if somebody's or if our lecture start already, please unmute yourself. Third one is turn on the video if kaya siya sa Wi-Fi. Then fourth one, rename yourself. And 5 questions and reflection. So ito yan siya. So our time started ba 7:30 to 10 p.m. So this is Monday and Wednesday. So yan, don't be late. Then second one is mute yourself. So yun. Then ito yun siya, dito yun makikita yung mute yourself. Especially po yung lectures po natin nag-continuous yung lecturing. So yun. So that hindi siya maingay po. So iba. So yun. Unmute. Third one is turn on your video. As what I've said earlier, if kaya siya ng internet, so yun, you can turn on the video. So yun, dito natin makikita video. And next one, so para makita natin yung participants. Lastly, rename yourself. Ito po yung proper na ano po. If example po, Herwin P. Kalinawan. So HQ, then yung sa iba po is kung saan po yung respective place or region. Okay? Then 5.1, questions and reflections. So, yun, huwag tayo mahiya if magtanong, if meron kayong clarifications and reflections para magkaroon tayo ng give and take. So, yun yun siya. So, don't be shy to ask questions. Okay? So, lastly, yan yun siya. So, that's all. Thank you so much po, brothers and sisters. Okay? For that, later we will take a picture because konti pa tayo ngayon. Let's have a recap for our topic last week. From the participants who wants to share recap last week. If wala, sige, sino yung kakanta? Joke. So, ito na lang siya, brothers and sisters.
Ikaw yung kakanta, ate.
Okay.
I remember ikaw yon.
Ate, okay. Move on pa tayo.
Na-schedule na yan next week, Friday.
Nagkamali yata po sabi. So yun, let's moving on. So last week, no, we discussed about the chapter 3. I will ano na lang. Chapter 3, the periods in providential history and the determination of their land. So ang ano natin yung na-focus na natin is yung parallel sa providential periods at saka yung mga numbers, di ba? So this evening, especially this on your cameras and videos. We would like to welcome our partner to give continuation of the topic from the chapter 4. He will be given the chapter 4, the parallels between the two ages in the providence of restoration, and section 7. So he's excited to share. So please help me to welcome our elder brother and a blessed of our Japanese, other than Kuya Julius Iscleto. Please give a hand, brothers and sisters.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I will share
po.
first my screen. Okay, mayroon na ba? Hello?
Yes po, kuya.
Okay,
Meron na
thank
po.
you. Okay, good evening once again, everyone,
Good evening.
brothers and sisters. So, this evening, we'll be discussing chapter 4 of the part 2 of the Divine Principle. But before we proceed, let's have a recap on the previous 3 chapters. So, chapter 1 is about the providence to lay the foundation for restoration. So it starts with Adam's family, that is to restore through indemnity, the foundation of faith, and the foundation of substance. And through these two foundations, we could the foundation for the Messiah would have been established. And this is on the family level. Wherein also the have this through symbolic offering. And chapter 2 is about Moses and Jesus in the providence of restoration. So this is on the national and worldwide level of uh, laying this foundation of faith and foundation of substance. Again, to uh, bring about the providence of the foundation for the Messiah. And the chapter 3 is about uh, the periods of the providential history and the determination of their lengths. So why history repeat itself? It is because of when a person fails in his given mission, then God will choose another person in a different era. So that's why the periods of providence of the restoration in the previous age again will be repeated in the later age. So now we are in the chapter 4, the parallels between the two ages in the providence of restoration. So since the ultimate purpose of the providence of restoration is to lay the foundation for the Messiah, if it is prolonged, the dispensation to restore this foundation must be repeated. So this has meant, in effect, the repetition of dispensations to restore through indemnity the symbolic offering and the substantial offering. So if you look at here, the chart, so the purpose, ultimate purpose of the providence of restoration is to lay the foundation for the Messiah. So that's why what I've said earlier. So if a person fails in doing his given mission, so it must be repeated again until such time that the indemnity condition in restoring those symbolic offerings and substantial offerings had been accomplished. So let's move on. So here in this providence of restoration, in the previous age, the nation centrally responsible for God's providence in the age of the providence of restoration, starting with Abraham, was Israel. The Old Testament, which records the history of Israel, provides the source material for studying providential history in that age. So, example, here in this providence of restoration, the central nation responsible for this age of the providence of restoration, starting with Abraham, was this one, Israel. And the Old Testament, which records the history of Israel, provides the source material for studying providential history in that age. And let's move on to the prolongation of the providence of restoration. So here, the central people in the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration, starting with Jesus, were Christians. Accordingly, the history of Christianity provides the source material for understanding providential history in this age. So in this sense, the descendants of Abraham in the Old Testament age may be referred to as the first Israel. And the Christian New Testament age may be called the second Israel. So here in the prolongation or the age of prolongation of the providence of restoration, the central people in this age of providence or prolongation of the providence of restoration, starting with Jesus, were Christians. Then Christian history provides the source material for understanding this providential history in this age. And we can refer to this as this first providence of restoration as the first Israel. This is the time of descendants of Abraham in the Old Testament age, and Christians as the second Israel in the New Testament age. So let's move on here. So on this basis, we can compare the histories of the first and second Israels and their impact on character of each period in the two providential ages. So recognizing a pattern of parallel periods, we come to know more clearly that history has been shaped by the systematic and lawful providence of the living God. So by comparing these histories of the providence of restoration, the previous and the present, then we can clearly know and more understand that history had been shaped by the systematic and lawful providence of the living God. So now let's go to parallel providential ages. So the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration has been to restore through substantial parallels the age of the providence of restoration, the age of image parallels as the result, as the periods of this age were to restore through indemnity the corresponding periods of the previous age. These periods proceeded in a parallel fashion, both in order and in length. The 400-year period of persecution in the Roman Empire in the age of the prolongation was the substantial parallel to the Israelites' 400-year period of slavery in Egypt. Its purpose was to restore that earlier period through parallel indemnity conditions. Likewise, the 400-year period of regional church leadership was to restore the 400-year period of the judges through parallel indemnity conditions. And the 120 years of the Christian empire was to restore the 120 years of the United Kingdom through parallel indemnity conditions. So let's take a look at this diagram. So when Abraham here failed in his first symbolic offering by not cutting the dove into two, okay? So the descendants of Abraham, as a result, indemnifies this and suffered 400 years slavery in Egypt. So again, in Jesus' time, for this also, when the Israelites, okay, their faithlessness to Jesus and put Jesus to the cross, so also they have to indemnify this, and also they also experience this severe persecution from the Roman Empire. So parallel siya, 400 years, the same 400 years. And in the time of the judges, this one is about the judges. Their responsibility is to erect that tabernacle, but they have been quarreling or something like this, that we cannot, because of that also they suffer from this 400 years of indemnification. And also these Christians also in the time of Saint Augustine, also the same thing, for 400 years. They have suffered this kind of indemnity because of not also erecting like that tabernacle image of the Messiah. And in the United Kingdom, so this has been led by three persons, like the prophets, which directly receive command from God, and the chief priests, which takers of the tabernacle, and the king, who are ruling the people. So, but then also there has been problem in dealing with their responsibilities. So they have to also suffer, indemnify for these 120 years. And the same with Saint Charlemagne in the Christian Empire. So the prophets symbolize the monasteries, and the chief priests as the Pope and also the kings. So the same thing also, they've been quarreling or something in taking their responsibilities, positions. So that's why they have to suffer for these 120 years. And divided kingdoms. So started with the King Saul, then King David, and King Solomon. But then King Solomon worshiped the idols of the Gentiles, which his wife had been worshiping. So his descendants has to suffer, and also they are divided into a north and south, which representing north Cain and south Abel. And also in the divided kingdoms, in the prolongation of the providence of restoration, also um, because of the quarrel of the grandsons of Emperor Charlie Magny. So also their kingdom had been divided into East Franks and West Franks. So the East represent Abel, and this one is Cain. So for 400 years. And here for 210 years. So this is Jewish, because of the Jewish people faithlessness, and they are not repenting of that. So that's why God allows them to be become captive in Babylon, and for 210 years, and they return to Canaan. And papal exile and return, the same thing. For 210 years, because of this Pope, they became corrupt, and their spirituality also are declining. So you have experienced also this captivity, exile, and return for 210 years. And here in Jesus' time, so they received Jesus after 400 years in preparation for the advent of the Messiah, the advent of Jesus. So the same thing for the preparation for the second advent. Okay? It will took also 400 years. Okay, let's move on. Section 7. The providence of restoration and the progress of history. So progress in history originates with individuals who, even amidst the vortex of good and evil, make determined efforts to reject evil and promote goodness. Therefore, the world toward which history is progressing is the kingdom of heaven, where the goal of goodness will be realized. So we know that after the fall, we have two inclinations. The original mind that desires goodness, and the evil mind that desires wickedness. So there are those fallen people that they make determined efforts to reject evil. They have and promote goodness. They are following their original mind. So the trend or the world toward which history is progressing is towards the kingdom of heaven. It's because many people are uh, now inclining in doing goodness by following the original mind. So kingdom of heaven, where the goal of goodness will be realized. So meanwhile, on the basis of his relationship of blood ties with the first human beings, Satan has worked through fooling people to realize in advance of God a perverted form of the ideal society, which God intends to realize. As a result, in human history, we witness the rise of unprincipled societies, which are built upon twisted versions of the principle. At the end of human history, before God can restore the kingdom of heaven on earth, Satan will have built an unprincipled world in a distorted image. in the kingdom of heaven, this is none other than the communist world. So we know that from the fall that because of that, we have this blood relationship with Satan. That's why he can work with us through that blood ties. So that's why Satan has worked firstly to realize in advance a perverted form of ideal society, which is this communist world. So the progress of history in the age of the providence of restoration. So social development guided by Satan. So when we examine the course of social development guided by Satan, we find that clan societies arose out of the divisions between individuals in primitive societies. These societies have tended to expand in scope with clan societies, developing into feudalistic societies and then anarchic societies by increasing their territory and power. Satan preempted this pattern ahead of God because he understood God's plan to call good individuals and have them build such societies. So when we examine the course of social development guided by Satan, we can find that clan societies arose out of division between individuals. So from here, it starts those people, as what I've said earlier, they're inclining uh, towards doing goodness and reject uh, evil. So from here, this the clan societies came out here, and feudalistic then expand to feudalistic societies and monarchic societies. Here, example, uh, Abraham, okay, from this sinful world, called by God to form and societies on God's side. So we can call this, sorry. Okay, God, Israelite clan society. God called Abraham to be the standard bearer of goodness and blessed him with descendants who would uphold God's will. God raised him up into the first Israelite clan society. They entered Egypt as a clan society, but by the time they left Egypt for Canaan, they had grown into a tribal society. Israelite society in the period of the judges was a feudalistic society. Then they entered a monarchic society with the establishment of the United Kingdom of Israel. So here, out of here, God called Abraham to be the standard bearer of goodness and bless his descendants and form this first Israelite clan society. Then when they entered Egypt, this clan society, they had grown into a tribal society. And here, this Israelite society into the period of judges was a feudalistic society. And then they entered into a monarchic society with the establishment of the United Kingdom of Israel. So here is the progress of history in the age of prolongation of the providence of restoration. So the providence of restoration and the history of the West. So had the Jewish people believed in Jesus as the Messiah and united with him, the Roman Empire which had united the ancient world around Mediterranean Sea, would have been won over by Jesus during his lifetime. Jesus would have been honored throughout the empire as the King of Kings and established a worldwide dominion with Jerusalem as its capital. So, had the Jewish people believed in Jesus as the Messiah, then uh, this Roman Empire, which have unified the ancient world, would have been won over by Jesus during his lifetime. And Jesus would have been honored throughout the empire as the King of Kings and established a worldwide dominion with Jerusalem as its capital. That's why we can understand the prophecy in the Bible that Jesus would become King of Kings, the other prophecy, aside from the suffering in his lifetime. If the Jewish people believe in Jesus as the Messiah. So, however, since Jesus was crucified, the Western Roman Empire came to an end in 476 AD, and the center of God's providence restoration shifted from Judea, the land of God's bitter grief, to Western Europe, formerly the territory of the Western Roman Empire. Accordingly, the spiritual providence of restoration based on Christianity has been conducted primarily in Western Europe. Only in Western Europe has the history of this era progressed strictly according to the pattern set by the providence of restoration. So the history of Christianity in Western Europe provide us with information about the events which shape the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration. So because Jesus was crucified, so the Roman Empire, this one before, came to an end in 476 AD. And the center of God's providence of restoration shifted from Judea, the land of God's bitter grief, to here, Western Europe. And accordingly, based on Christianity, has been conducted primarily in Western Europe. And only in Western Europe has this history that the era progressed according by the providence of restoration. And here, this of Christianity in Western Europe provides about the events that shape the age of the prolongation of the providence of restoration. So the mutual relations between religious history, economic history, and political history. So although religion and economy seem to develop at variance with each other, they are related in the life of society. Thus, there has been some mutual influence between the history of Christianity and economic history. Religion and economy are integrated with our life in society through politics. So therefore, to accurately grasp the progress of history as it moves toward the goal of the providence of restoration, we must investigate separately the Christian economic and political history. So to accurately grasp the progress of history, we have to investigate separately this Christian economic and political history. Let's go to clan society. So with the crucifixion of Jesus, the Jewish nation had fallen to Satan's side. Consequently, God broke up that society, calling devout believers out of it to establish a Christian clan society. So despite severe persecution, Christian clan society gradually prospered in the Roman Empire and developed into a Christian tribal society. So Christian society expanded greatly as Christianity was brought to the Germanic peoples who migrated into this territory in the latter half of the 4th century. So with the crucifixion of Jesus, this Jewish nation had broken up and had fallen to Satan's side. And God broke up this society, and the same with uh, the previous prolongation of the providence of restoration. God called also devout believers out of this nation that had fallen to Satan to establish Christian clan society in the Roman Empire, and gradually prospered in the Roman Empire and developed into a Christian tribal society and expanded greatly as it was brought to the Germanic peoples who migrated uh, into this territory in the latter half of centuries, become Christian societies of Germanic peoples. Now, feudalistic society. So a feudalistic society was born in Europe when around the fall of the Roman Empire, imperial authority waned and the empire sank into chaos. So we can understand more about feudalistic society here. So feudalistic society, in this society, religion, politics, and economy would eventually divide and take separate paths. Feudalistic society in Europe gradually developed into a political system based on master-servant relationships at every level, as between lords of different ranks and their knights, and the self-sufficient economy of the manor system. Land was divided into many manors, each ruled by a feudal lord. The kings had limited power and were no more than great feudal lords. Religious life in Europe during the period of regional church leadership developed along the same lines as the early feudalism of its political and economic life. Hence, it may be termed feudalistic Christianity. Patriarchs, archbishops, and bishops assumed positions corresponding to major, medium, and minor feudal lords. And the Pope was only one of the 5 patriarchs. So with respect to economic life, this period began with a time of transition from the slave society of ancient Europe, Rome, to the manor system. So that is uh, feudalistic society. So God raised feudalistic society among the newly Christianized Germanic peoples, whom he had chosen to lead the providence by strengthening small units under godly sovereignty in the spheres of religious, political, and economic life. God laid the groundworks to establish a godly kingdom. So in this Christian feudalistic society, so God raised this feudalistic society among the newly Christianized Germanic people. So whom he had chosen to lead the province. So by strengthening small units under godly sovereignty in the sphere of religious, political, and economic life. So God laid the groundwork to establish a heavenly kingdom. Now let's go to monarchic society and imperialism. So in the sphere of religion, monarchic Christianity was a spiritual kingdom which transcended national borders. It was established under the rule of the papacy and upon the spiritual foundation for the Messiah. So in the political sphere, absolute monarchies flourished from the 17th century until the French Revolution in 1789. In the progress of economic history, feudalism was followed by capitalism, which was accompanied by the age of colonial expansion. So here in monarchic Christianity, so in the sphere of religion, it was a spiritual kingdom which transcended national borders. So it was established under the rule of papacy and upon the spiritual foundation for the Messiah. And in politics, so this is the sphere of absolute, that the absolute monarchy had flourished. It was in the 17th century until the French Revolution in 1789. And in the sphere of economy, feudalism was followed by capitalism, which was accompanied by the age of colonial expansion. So to understand more monarchic society, religion, the popes fell away from God's will and became secularized. They were on the path of spiritual decline due to repeated defeats in the Crusades. The papacy lost its authority. With the Protestant Reformation in 1517, Western Christianity ceased to be a unitary spiritual monarchy. And in politics, with the decline of feudalism, the previously decentralized powers of the feudal lords came to be concentrated in the hands of kings of large nation states. The kings came to command absolute power and justified it by the doctrine of the divine rights of kings. And economy. Capitalism's purpose in the providence was to promote the accumulation of capital and the centralization of economic activity to an extent impossible under feudalism. This was even more the case with imperialism. So, democracy and socialism. So God began a process that would eventually tear down monarchic societies and raise up democracies in their place in order to rebuild a sovereign nation fit to receive the Messiah. So in the political sphere, the democratic movements which rose in the late 18th century give rise to revolution in England, America, and France, giving birth to today's democratic society. So, democracy and socialism. So, God began the process to eventually tear down the monarchic societies. in order to raise democracy. It is because this is where to rebuild a nation that fit to receive the Messiah. And also in the political sphere, these democratic movements also give rise, which rose in the late 18th century, give rise to revolutions in England, America, and France. And also that resulted to today's democratic societies. So democracy and socialism. The progress of history in the religious sphere moved to the stage of democratic Christianity after monarchic Christianity was shattered by the Protestant Reformation. So in democracy and socialism, so the progress of history in here in religious sphere moved to the stage of democratic Christianity after the monarchic Christianity was shattered by Protestant Reformation. So with the progress of economic history, socialist ideals arose which undermined imperialism and fostered a democratic form of economy. So democracy is based on the sovereignty of the people. It is government of, by, and for the people. Democracy is a means, transitional ideology to facilitate the regime change to be effected by the Lord to come. So when the Lord appears on earth, all people of the world must follow him. So this is in democracy where the nation, sovereign nation, could be able to having this type of government that fit to receive the Messiah. Socialism. According to God's ideal of creation, God confers upon each individual the same original value, just as parents love all their children equally. So God desires to provide pleasant environments and living conditions equally to all his children. So because human beings are created to live in an ideal society, they will inevitably pursue a socialistic ideal as they strive for freedom and democracy and further search into their original nature. So this is particularly true at the consummation of providential history when this ideal can actually be realized. So the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values versus communism. So in seeking for a socialistic society on God's side, people's original mind has drawn them to the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So the world in which these ideals will finally be realized is none other than the kingdom of heaven on earth under the leadership of the returning Christ. So since Satan mimics God's providence in advance, the satanic side has advocated scientific socialism based on the theories of dialectical and historical materialism and has built the communist world. So because of the providence that people are inclining to uh, follow their original mind, which desires goodness. So it has drawn also to the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So, of course, this is um, none other than the kingdom of heaven on earth under the leadership of the returning Lord. And since Satan mimics God's providence in advance, so they have also this in advance of the kingdom of heaven um, advocated scientific socialism based on the theories of dialectical and historical materialism. And this is also none other than the communist world. So the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values versus communism. So the ideals of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values are concepts dealing with the economic, political, and moral aspects of the ideal world. So the ideal of interdependence pertains to the economic aspect of the ideal society and means joint ownership based on God's true love. So the ideal of mutual prosperity pertains to the political aspect of the ideal society and is a theory of universal politics which all people participate in. And the ideal of universally shared values means universal ethics. It seeks a society where the true love of the three subject partners, true parents, true teacher, true owner, is constantly practiced. So fusion of religious, political, and economic histories. So for the path of religion, politics, and economy to converge and realize God's ideal, a new expression of truth must emerge, which can completely integrate religion and science. The religion founded upon this truth will lead all of humanity to become one with God in heart. Such people will build an economy in accordance with the divine ideal, providing the foundation for a new political order to realize the ideal of creation. So this will be the Messianic kingdom built on the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. So the fusion of religion, economy, and politics can only be realized through the new expression of truth. So it can enlighten or overcome those spiritual and uh, external, physical, and can integrate this religion and science. So the religion founded upon this truth will lead humanity to become one with God in heart and will build an economy in accordance with the divine ideal and provides uh, a foundation for political order to realize the ideal of creation. So this will be the Messianic kingdom built on the principles of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. Okay, that's all. That ends my lecture this evening. And thank you for listening. Again, good evening.
Mhm. Thank you so much po, Kuya Julius Isleto po, for that amazing lecture po. Please give a hand, brothers and sisters. Please open your camera po, everyone. So we know already about the chapter 4, especially the parallels between the two ages and the providence of restoration. As what Kuya Julius says, that the ultimate purpose of the providence of restoration is to lay the foundation for the Messiah. So it is, if it is prolonged, the dispensation to restore this foundation must be repeated. So yun siya nga, by the, so because of the prolongation, so nag-repeat itself tayo ngayon. So yun, our first ancestors, di ba, especially our central figure before, di ba, nag-repeat sila repeatedly because of that failure. So this time we should be able to really connect and unite also for the connect also to our central figure so that it will not para siya ma-stop na siya, at the same time ma-fulfill natin yung individual nga responsibility. So yun about sa history that we've tackled. Okay. For that. Sino na po yung gusto magana po? Wants to share first for their reflections or some clarifications po for the topic from the participants? Could you please open the camera po or video? Okay po. Okay. Okay, I will share my screen. First reflection, then second, we should be able to accept some questions and clarifications po. So allow me to share my screen for the real admins. Okay. Okay, just welcome, Ate Josie, brothers and sisters. Please unmute yourself po, Ate Josephine. Ate Josephine, nakamute po kayo.
Yes, madam. Ano po yun?
Ano po? Ano po, Ate? Reflection po from the topic po about the chapter 4. The parallels between the two.
Tas po na, mamaya.
Okay, nawala si Ate Josephine. Let's proceed for the others. Okay, let's proceed. Okay. Please help me to welcome Kuya Patrick. Please give a hand, brothers and sisters.
Hi, Sir Patrick.
You Patrick, please unmute yourself po.
Yan, naka-unmute na siya.
Good good evening po, elders, brothers and sisters. For my reflection for today's uh, lecture po, um, is that kanang before meeting the movement, kanang I really don't have this concept na the history is kanang when ito prepared by God, the world is prepared by God to receive the second coming or the Messiah to correct the mistake of our first ancestor. And it is really amazing to see this kanang parallel history because kanang it is kanang the 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 ideas that really kanang prove the the principle, the divine principle that we could really see it on history, on kanang books, kanang really proved by science, not just kanang when we can really prove that kanang true father is not just kanang making this kanang principle, but it is based on both religion and science, you know. So I am really kanang amazed kanang on how kanang God really follows kanang absolutely his principle. So reflecting with it, kanang, we also should really be kanang take ownership of our responsibility because as we can see, kanang people in the past have really failed to kanang take ownership in their responsibility. Kanang, that is why the providence of restoration really I kanang needed to be kanang there is a need for prolongation. So now, yung reflecting with that with our era now, we are in the era of Chinilgo. So when our the indemnity that we need to pay is lesser compared to what the uh, central figures and central people in the past. So even though we have lesser kanang indemnity to pay, but we need to really exert 100% of our effort even though kanang much lesser kanang we could still have the possibility to fail. That is why kanang I am really kanang mindful of my actions now. Every now and then there is a possibility that I can really make great mistakes and really Satan can accuse me and I'm really kanang afraid that kanang if I fail my responsibility now kanang just as what happened to the central figures and central people in the past that God needed to kind of find another set of one central people to restore my lineage. So that is why I really take this opportunity and responsibility a great honor because I was chosen by God to represent my lineage to really kanang be the one as a first generation to take kanang the first step to change my blood lineage. Ano. So kanang I'm so grateful that I met this movement. I met true parents and I have this new perception of God. The I learned the suffering heart of God. So that would be all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much po, Kuya Patrick. Please give a hand, brothers and sisters. So as what Kuya Patrick says that we need to take ownership or yan, so that the history or the failure that for that failure nga na ano ng first ancestors natin or mga central figures na dumadaan, so hindi na siya po mag-repeat. So this time we need to really posture especially our individual yun individual mission or individual kung ano yung binibigay po sa atin as what our leaders trusted us. So, yun yung siyang ano ng as what Kuya Patrick says, take ownership po as
Can
individual.
I ask Patrick further question?
Yes, pa.
Patrick,
But
can you cite an example or a situation before you met the movement and after you met the movement, wherein uh, you can relate your experience to the parallels in history and also how you were able to overcome it and how you were guided by God to overcome it even though, di ba? Even though you don't know the principle yet. Mahirap ba?
Parang napakahirap po.
Sabi mo kasi,
I did.
yeah. Pero may sinabi ka kasi, based on your based sa sinabi mo kasi, you are trying to be careful now, not to repeat the mistake of, yun, not to repeat yung the those mistakes of chosen people. Parang ganun yung to that effect, di ba? Ganun yung sinasabi mo. So can you marami pang time so I would like to to ask you to at least cite an example so that we can learn from you also, and if ever may ganun situation na we can also guide other people on how to overcome it. And ganun. Kasi that's how we are to learn from each other. Diba? Mahirap. Sorry pag pinahirapan ko na.
So, but kanang one thing that I can relate to this kanang topic is that kanang before meeting the movement, my attitude towards kanang upon receiving a task from my kanang maybe a teacher or kanang someone with higher position than me kanang I really kanang first kanang find ways to reject that task, find ways to kanang to pass the task to other people like that. So I always kanang find ways to kanang to I leave the responsibility to others. Nga kanang I always find kanang ways nga kanang just kanang avoid taking ownership, the responsibility. But when I meet the movement, kanang that is the thing that kanang also I strive or I do my best to overcome. Kanang as what I have learned also with this kanang topic or kanang that if the central people fail to take ownership of their portion of responsibility, then the providence will be prolonged. So kanang reflecting it with kanang also with my life in the center, whenever kanang our elders or most especially our center leader gives a task, then if I kanang show the same attitude that I have before meeting the movement, that I complain or avoid the responsibility, then our center leader need to find another person to do the task, then there will be a prolongation in kind of fulfilling the task like that. So so in that way I can reflect the topic with kanang my life. Ano. So that would be all. Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that that's how you see it. So, Sir Patrick, and truly you have really, talagang impressed talaga kami sa mga taga Bohol, o di ba? Starting from Kuya Kerwin and the first batch, di ba? So, thank you, Sir Kerwin, Sir Patrick. Yes. Ano? Okay.
That includes Ate Monina, ate. Ate Monina also is from Bohol, right, ate? Ate Liba, I'm sorry.
Agusan natin. Agusan ka ba?
Yes po,
Agusan
ate.
ka, di ba?
Oo, my bad. Sorry.
Natutuwa ako sa kanila.
Starting po kay Kuya Herwin. Ang galing nila.
And the rest.
And the rest of the participants.
Ako taga Valencia.
Valencia.
Valencia, Bohol.
Valencia, Bohol.
Valencia din ako, kuya. Bukid nun nga lang.
Adopted ako ng Valencia, Bohol.
Oh! Tayo lahat!
Gusto ko makibalencia pero bukid nun lang ako.
Magkapag-transfer na nga po sa Bohol. Magkagaling.
Para mahawa na din, ano?
Opo, para mahawaan po.
Ako din gusto akong mahawa dun.
Oo, para mahawa tayo lahat sa kanila.
Hawa-hawa na to.
Okay. Okay, let's proceed.
Thank you, Sir Patrick. We expecting you to the third batch. Yung pala yun, yung nakasunod dun eh. Diba?
All of the above. Lahat na nandyan nakahilira, 4. Opta na yan. Opta na yan.
Pati si Juno, of course, huwag natin kalimutan si Miss Josephine, o di ba?
Yes,
andyan po.
Josephine. Nawala po sa Ate Josephine eh. Hindi na ba?
Ay, nawala!
Kanina po nawala.
Okay. Okay, let's continue. Moving on. Just help me to welcome Ate Kristenet. Ate, naka-unmute po kayo.
Again, good evening, Heavenly Parents. Good evening, true parents. Good evening, lecturers, elders, brothers, and sisters.
Good evening po.
My reflection about the topic is that, yes, this, when I am receiving this kind of lecture last, when I first met the movement is, I am asking the one of the lecturer because it seems like yes, I'm ignorant in what I have received, and for me it is so hard to to receive it because in the being in the outside world, we I just really know that the story of Adam and Eve, but not in the topic of all the deep meaning of it. And yes, this time the lectures of the divine principles really parang slap me the reality of how our ancestors or our central figures really did or didn't really do their portion of responsibilities, or they are failed in doing it. For me, receiving it is parang may sakit kasi they know bakit sila tinawag ni God and bakit parang ano na they really don't really put that faith on this on like God putting his trust on them. And in this time I am one of the really guilt on having that having that upside down faith on God, because even though I really know the movement, I really know God's want and really know what should I do to comfort him, but the reality is so hard to really move forward and achieve what God's want to me. And for me, I was feel feel guilty on being, but I'm like they said, mistakes or failed never di naman yun ang dahilan kung bakit ka pwede na ang sumuko kasi failure ka, but it is the one of the learnings to really move forward to achieve what should we do na para di na bumalik yung mistakes na nagawa na din. And I'm really motivated to really do on that things kasi sometimes even though I have this principle that I know about the movement, but being in a fallen world, I am so much parang suffocated on being in the community that really don't know the divine principle. And parang pag magkasama mo yung iba na hindi pa nakarinig, they said that parang mataas ka sa kanila, ganun. Tapos pag di mo naman ay it comes to persecution kasi di nila maintindihan kung bakit ka nagsabi niyan, bakit iniiwasan mo to. Pero yes, for them to be restored, I have this motivation and determination to really know first the movement and really feel or really know the divine principle to really teach my fellow youth to know the really meaning of why God made the human beings. Yun na lang po yung determination po ngayon. Thank you so much po.
Yes, thank you so much po, Ate Christine, for that amazing reflection po.
Sabi ko, nagbigay na kaagad ng determination si Miss Christine para wala akong follow-up question.
Ano po yung follow-up question niya po, Ate?
Alam ko na po yun, Terilyn.
Brilliant. Very brilliant. I like that. Mabuti talaga si Christinette. Good job.
Na-site niya kaagad. Okay. Mag-isip pa ako mamaya pa ako magtatanong. Sige. Next
Ate, yun yung in relation to your question to ni Patrick na that is how God have guided her. Oh, di adyo kaya, no?
So, yun yung siya, no? As what Ate Christine says.
Ang tatanungin ko pala kay Miss Christine, do you know now why? Do you know? Hello? Biglang ganun.
Ano po?
Ano ba yun? Actually, I'm also learning from you. And nare-reflect ko din na that's the reason why, this is the reason why God has invested so much with the chosen people starting with Abraham. Kasi sila yung, the family of Abraham. Kasi di ba, sila yung unang naging victorious based sa, sila yung sa family ni Abraham, sila yung unang victorious, di ba? Dahil kay Jacob, di ba? Naaralan natin yun. And yet, pagdating ng Jesus Christ, the substantial incarnation of the Word, di ba? Anong ginawa nila ng chosen people? God has so much hope on the chosen people, di ba? Anong ginawa ng chosen people? They crucified the substantial incarnation of the Word, di ba? But tingin mo gaano kadali ba? Ganun ba kadali para kay God na to turn His back on the chosen people, or He have guided them and put His full trust. So, hindi lang 100%, more than 100% of it, times 10 siguro, 1,000. Kung merong 1,000%, siguro may ganung binigay ni God sa kanila na trust, di ba? And yet, how painful it is for God to turn His back on them, because they have crucified or murdered.
Sasagot na po ba?
Nag-buffer yung internet ni ate.
Okay. May
Hard ng question.
what can you say po, Ate Christine?
Ano po yung question po? Ano yung is God really put his 100% trust to the ano po? Yun po ba yung question? For me po, own opinion ko lang po to. God really, yes, being a parent, you, parang ano po, parang na ano ko na po sa mga elders po na, being a parent, you have to trust your children on doing their portion of responsibilities, kasi even they have, or even they are failure, they really children really motivates to really move forward if they feel the trust of their parents. And for me po, being God really invests his 100% love, because he wants to feel love, because you can't give the love that human beings will deserve if you didn't really know that love, that really the meaning of love. And God is the first person, really give his 100% love to the humanity because of his creation. Parang yun yung isa sa mga ano na God put his love to his children by his creation, kasi binigyan tayo ng napakagandang creation ni God, and that is one of the example po na really God really loves humanity. And yes po, yun po yung ano ko na God really trusts the central figures, but sad, it's so sad to hear that the central figures that God called is didn't or some of it is a failure. And for me po, it's so pain, because it so hurt kasi when ano yung parang may na ano ko na God really wanted to feel love and wanted to his children will come to him once again. And even though many times his children really or his children failed, but God's really trust her children again to really achieve or really look forward to be victorious. And that is why he sent Jesus Christ, who he trusts the most in being victorious na sana, but sad to say, humanity is not receiving or embracing the first Messiah. And now that true parents is here, and I'm so really motivated to really my fellow youth is really embrace true parents, especially true mother now, because true mother really put his or her entire life to really be victorious and be offered to heavenly parents the love that he deserved and he longing for so long. That could be all. Thank you so much.
Yes po. Thank you so much po, Ate Christinette, for that your heartfelt reflection. So, yun, from our true parents talaga, we're so lucky because we are here we are here this time nga it's our own ano na talaga siya, yun na, it's our own decision or it's our own responsibility in how could be able to really apply it, and then how could we able to really unite as well to our to our central figure. So yun yung siyang para ma-fulfill natin, para di na siya mag-repeat yung ano naman, failure. So, lastly, we have two left na lang po. Dalawa na lang naiwan dito. Wala for that reflection. Allow me to share my screen. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, please help me to welcome Ate Josephine po. Welcome po, Ate Josephine.
Hello po.
Yes, good evening po, Ate.
Good evening. Sorry, hindi ko masyado narinig kanina. Nadi-disconnect kasi eh. Magbabasa na lang po ako ng libro later. May libro naman po ako. Nadi-disconnect kasi ako kanina pa eh. Babasahin ko na lang po yung libro ko para makagawa ako reflection. Sorry.
Okay po, Ate. May tanong lang po kami, Ate. So,
Nadi-disconnect mo kasi. Ano po tanong? Yung kaya ko lang po Ano
yun po, Ate, if sa time po ng ano natin, nung sa panahon po ng ano natin, what we call this, first and sisters na si Adam and Eve, if kayo pong nasa sa situation nila, ano po yung gagawin niyo po? Para hindi nag-fall at the same time, hindi ano tawag dito? Hindi siya mag-repeat yung failure po.
Sa opinion ko, kung tatanungin, siguro iintayin ko yung right time para gawin ko yung dapat kong gawin at hindi ko dapat gawin para hindi ako ma-fall. Ano pa? Siguro iisipin mo na yung mga dapat gawin. Huwag maintindi ng temptation. Something like that. Pwede na yun. Thank you.
Okay, Pati. Thank you po. Okay po, lastly po, please give a hand, brothers and sisters. Lastly, to share her heart. Okay, no other than Ate, please help me to welcome Ate Johnamy. Please give a hand po, brothers and sisters.
Good evening po, Heavenly Parents.
Good evening.
Good evening po, lecturers, brothers and sisters. So, my reflection po, nakakakaba po knowing na po this clear history, parang mas okay po sa akin mag-reflect than before. Kasi parang kinakabahan po ako dati. But now that um, recognizing the pattern of parallel periods, I come to know the clearly meaning of the history that has been shaped by the systematic and lawful providence of our Heavenly Father. So, gaya po ng sinabi ng lecturer po natin that since God's ultimate purpose of the providence of restoration is to lay po the foundation of the Messiah that is delayed or it is prolonged. So, parang alam po natin that the restoration of the foundation will be repeated if the central figures will fail. But reflecting po now, previous lectures, the principle itself is kanang hindi na po siya burden to me kasi parang I realized that the principle or this new truth is meant to be. I mean, it's the natural way of living. So parang naging paano po ba yan? Parang naging principle po siya kasi because our first ancestors have been fought. But now knowing this movement po, parang kine-question ko po yung sarili ko na bakit ko pinoprovoke this movement na dapat this teaching will be realized and parang matignan po natin na this is not the optional, but this is the natural way. This is the natural way of living as a human being na kahit po nag-fall yung first ancestors natin, this new truth is this principle is still implemented to us. So parang yun po, parang the whole coverage of history might reflect to us, but still parang gusto ko pong ma-realize to my brothers and sisters na this principle or this teaching is the natural way of living. So, yun lang po. Thank you po.
Yes po, thank you so much po, Ate Johnamy po, for your reflections. Then, at this moment po, meron po tayong tanong po dito po sa chat box po natin. Okay, I will read this. Why do you need to know the history? How does it can help you in your life? What actions you have done and will be doing so that the victories of the past ancestors will not be wasted. Cite actual action that you have done already and also you will do as you go on with your life. Ulitin ko. Ang haba ng tanong. Okay, why do you need to know this history? How does it can help you in your life? What action you have done and will be doing so that the victories of the past ancestors will not be wasted. Cite actual action that you have done already and also will do as you go on with your life. From the sino first magsagot? From the lecturers po. Sinong gusto po
Lecturers?
I'm sorry, from the participants, I mean.
Roleta daw uli.
Roleta pa uli.
Ayaw din ako ano eh. Ruleta ulit. Di ba sa
Okay.
beginning?
Skip.
Siyempre may favorite tayo.
Okay po.
Siyempre pag ako tatanungin mo, si Miss Josephine ang sasabihin ko.
Ay!
Nandiyan na yun.
Okay, I want to share my screen. Okay na pala yun. No. Again, napindot ko pa siya kanina. The lucky one po.
Kaya talaga si Miss Josephine sabi sa'yo eh.
Help me to welcome Ate Josephine.
Parang hindi
Grabe nga yung kakampi ko sa
hindi halatang ano sa akin pinagtama yung ruleta. The best way to cleanse
kakampi kami ni God, Miss Josephine.
po. Hindi halata po lang sa akin
Kakampi kami ni
yung ruleta.
Siyempre, paborito ka namin ni God.
Kasi di ako nasagot eh. No? Ano pa, the best way to cleanse the sins from the past is to fight against and win over Satan. Yun po, isa lang po ang sasagot ko.
Ano po ate? Meron pa dito. Why do you need to know the history po? Sa first na tanong po.
History. Para po malaman natin kung anong gagawin natin para maipanalo natin, maitama natin yung pagkakamali para hindi masayang yung ng mga ancestor.
Ano po yung mga nagawa mo na para may tama yung pagkakamali na yun? Ano po yung mga nagawa mo at gagawin mo pa in the future?
Yung po kilalanin po yung totoong yung pong nagawa ko para itama is yung mag-join po ako sa DP kasi unti-unti kong nalalaman yung difference ng turo sa other religion at dito po. Marami po kasing pagkakaiba. So, step by step, na-stimulate ko para isa puso ko yung DP na pinasukan ko. Step by step lang po, to be honest. Hindi naman po kasi ganun kadali yun. But at least, ini-stimulate ko naman po lahat para yung pong group is mailagay ko sa puso at sa isip. Thank you.
Okay.
Alam po.
Sige, Sir Randy.
Knowing that there is a difference between other religion and the teaching of the movement, you as a person who is studying the divine principle, how can you bridge the gap so that people or from other religion can have a clear understanding of what's the purpose of God and how we will live our life in accordance to God's purpose after all?
I try to explain po sa kanila kung ano yung tungkol sa DP. Pipilitin ko silang maintindihan nila at maunawaan para malaman nila kung ano yung aim ng DP. Para na rin makita nila yung differences kung ano yung nagagawa nun sa other religion sa ginagawa ng True Father, like yung unity na gusto ng True Father na magkaroon ng intact family and a lot more. Thank you po. Nagsasalita ako.
May additional pa kayo na tanong po ate?
Miss Josephine, Kung ang kalayo, paano mo i-describe ngayon sa puso mo, sa puso mo si God. Si God. Kung halimbawa, 10 kilometro ang layo ni God sa puso mo. Walang ganyan. Gaano kalayo na siya ngayon sa'yo?
Paano?
Or gaano kalapit ka?
Wala.
Based sa based po dun sa based po sa understanding mo kay God before mo na-meet yung principle or naintindihan yung principle at saka ngayon na inaaral mo yung principle together with this 21A lecture series. Bago mo na-meet bago mo yung nakilala, bago mo nalaman about the principle or naging aware about the movement and dun sa divine principle, gaano kalapit si God sa'yo, kung sabihin natin 10 kilometro yung layo niya si God sa'yo, at ngayon inaaral mo yung principle at alam mo yung principle.
Actually, marami
Bigyan natin ng kung gaano, let's say, 10 kilometro ang layo ni God sa'yo. Yung bago ka,
no, actually,
bago mo na-meet,
hindi malayo si God. What I'm trying to say is yung religion na kinikilala ko. Actually, before Catholic ako. Tapos, this past 3 years, ang pinakikinggan ko na is yung Datindaan. Then, after Datindaan, dito nga ako naman sa DP. So, pinag-aaralan ko kung ano yung what do you call ba? Yung kung saan mas mapapalapit kay God. Inaano ko bawat religion na
ang ibig ko sabihin siguro, mali siguro yung sabi ko, mas nakilala mo ba mas nakilala mo na ba si God? Yun. How far did you, do you know God before and after you have learned about the principle? Mas napalapit ka ba o mas napalayo?
Well, I can say na napalapit kasi ngayon natututo akong magbasa ng mga books ng DP. Not like before, hindi ako nagpabasa kasi basta nanonood lang ako minsan sa Datindaan. Ngayon, kahit paano nagbabasa ako. Kasi gusto ko malaman the whole about True Father.
Thank you, Miss Josephine. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you rin po.
Thank you so much po, Ate Josephine. Next po, let's help me to welcome Ate Chrisnet po. Please give a hand, brothers and sisters. Ginruleta ko na po. Ate Christinet, please.
Good evening po ulit. So,
Good evening.
I will read muna the question. Why do you need to know this history? For me po, it's we really need to know the history because yes, like Ate Josephine said that dapat malaman natin kung ano yung nakaraan kasi para hindi na natin magawa sa kasalukuyan. And for me po, yes, even though it's so hard to really change the things that our central figures did to this present, but the foundation of the elders that who really determined to raise up the movement now is parang it is one of the my realization po that I'm so grateful na nalaman ko yung history na para ngayon na in this era po, I will do my portion of responsibilities that even it's hard, but when it comes to this determination to really and to really move forward and to know really the or to give back the Heavenly Parents wanted po for so long. Kaya po, I'm so grateful na nalaman ko po yung history and how it does it help you. It helped me so much po. The knowing the divine principle, knowing the history, it gives me so much realization and challenge as well. Because being in the community that really kung sa ano pa po unwanted, ayaw mong mabelong doon is I'm so grateful that I really know this movement, and I've been invited because ano po sasabihin ko? Kasi po to be honest, I am one of the people that really didn't feel God's want po. And kasi I'm raised up in the community that parang norms na lang sa kanila yung nangyayari, ganun. And it gave me so much realization po talaga na to be changed in order to have been a role model to my future descendants po. And I hope that I could do it, and I will always be determined to do that things that I really I know, and what action you have done and will be doing so that it is the doings that I've been doing now is in past years po na nung di pa po ako nakamit sa divine principle po is ay ko po ng another opinions, or ay ko po makarinig ng like ito yung gusto ko, ay parang gusto ko lang po yung masusunod, ay ko pong ng gusto ng iba, yung opinion ng iba. I'm just yung gusto ko lang ganun. Tapos nung na-meet ko yung movement, and they teach me talaga to really change on what I am before, to really be to be really the role model po this era. And I'm so grateful po talaga sa mga elders dito sa Bohol that really teach me and give me the things out, or give me all the lesson na parang nalaman din po nila sa elders po na nag-teach po din sa kanila. And I'm always nung una po kasi is I'm not, fallen world po talaga yung nakaraan ko as in. Tsaka when I entered in center po, nag full time po ako, parang nag-change po yung perception ko na dapat gawin ko to, kasi di lang po marami na po ang na-invest yung elders to really teach us, to really nurture us. Pero pag di parang nasa mindset ko na po na pag di ko po to na overcome, parang na waste yung ng elders po, ganun. And yun na lang po. Thank you so much po.
Yes, thank you so much po, Ate Christinette, for your heart to share your reflections. Okay, another reflection. Oh, answer po from the question. Next po is Kuya Patrick. Ay, hindi pa na share. Go, please help me to welcome po, Kuya Patrick.
Good evening once again, elders, brothers, and sisters.
Good evening po.
So for my answer sa question, why do you need to know this history? Kanang meron po tayong kasabihan na kanang experience is the best teacher. Pero meron po din mga bagay na hindi natin kailangang ma-experience para matuto tayo. So kanang para sa akin, this history helps us to avoid kanang experiencing things kanang that will bring harm to us. So we can learn from history kanang things that our ancestors did that kanang had a bad result. So we can avoid these things by learning the history. Then how does it can help you in your life? So just what I have said earlier na the history helps us avoid things or kanang para maiwasan natin yung mga bagay na nagawa ng ating mga ancestors at what they did in the past, past mistakes. And also we can use history as a reference for us to improve ourselves, to make ourselves better, achieve greater things than our ancestors have done, and what actions you have done. So kanang recent ay kanang one thing that I realized nga kanang the victory that my ancestor have done. So kanang this gift that I received from my ancestors na that I just recently appreciated, that kanang ever since I am not able to be in a romantic relationship with others na hindi pa ako nakaroon ng girlfriend. So kanang before meeting the movement, kanang I really am asking kanang why parang I am out of place like that, because my friends already have their own kanang girlfriend like that. When they talk with each other about their experiences like that, then I am out of place, hindi ako makarelate sa kanila. But upon meeting the movement, I became grateful. Like kanang my ancestors really have done so much to kanang really achieve this kwan bitaw. So for me to receive this merit that I am protected from chapter 2 problems, kay if kanang reflecting it with the first question nga kanang why do you need to kwan this history, kay kanang it's really different if you experience this kanang chapter 2 problems from kanang what I have kanang experienced now. Kay I haven't been in romantic relationship, so I have this kanang smooth kanang acceptance of the concept of kanang matching and the blessing like that. Kay if I kanang kung sa tingin ko, kung nagkaroon ako ng girlfriend in the past, maybe kanang it's hard for me to accept kanang the matching and ganyan. So I'm also thankful because kanang it is I really kanang believe that it is also kanang because of the efforts of my ancestors in the past na. So now I am really kanang valuing this gift from my ancestors na. So to really kanang kuan kanang give importance and keep my purity until God will give the right uh the right partner or my future spouse for me ana. So that would be all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much po Kuya Patrick for your ano po. In BSB. Anong tawag nito man? Ate Sylvie, you want to add something, some po?
Kurban sadta. um, siguro I wanted to just, meron kasi akong ano kanina. Why do we have to learn this history and how can it help us? Yeah. In relation to few reflections of the nauna na. Personally, it really had helped me a lot. Kasi prior to knowing the principle, I am personally very, very idealistic. I always wanted to seek for something that seemingly is right. And I am kind of critical. Feeling marunong, pero hindi talaga. I'm actually very ignorant of the history and I'm not interested even, in the history. That's why when these parallel histories are being discussed, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so engrossed to it. Like, is it really? And I really even regretted na I did not pay attention on, especially in the European history, how has it been shaped in accordance to the providence of God in God's works to really make all of us humankind, human beings, be able to understand His heart, His will of His real intention of and be able to understand the purpose of creation, and we can. That's why because of this, real intention of God to make His children go back to His bosom. We know very well how Satan is mimicking everything, right? Kaya, dun sa discussion ni Kuya Julius, it is very clear to said na communism actually, and even socialism in combination to that has been, has arisen ahead of this understanding that we have now. That's why way back I was having this kind of radical thinking that I think is right. But this history has really helped me realize na dili di ay ni mao. This is not it. This is not that socialism that I had in mind that seemed to be an answer to the present conflict of humanity. Dili pala di ay tinuod. This kind of thing. And that's why I am really very grateful, and that has helped me able to go make a leap from that used to be thinking to the present. But admittedly, even to this time, I still am seeking a lot of things. That's why I'm continuously trying to study, with the principle. And these young people are very lucky when you have not met maybe the things that I had met when I was a lot younger. And I could say that this is how God prepared all of you, and your ancestors work hard for that. And because once you are already in there, it would honestly be very, very difficult, beyond imagination, beyond words can convey, how difficult it would be for us to overcome the and to get out from that old self that you had been used to. It's really very difficult. Yeah, even in your way of or attitude, a way of maybe saying words or expressing yourself, it would be very not easy. It will take a lot of, like a snake that would have to shed a skin in a very difficult manner and in a very painful manner. You have to go through that. And then I am grateful that you guys have not doesn't have to go through that same experience. So, ako, yung personal ko na experience, yeah, yung mga nararamdaman na patuloy gusto kong ipatuloy na gawin. Of course is, yeah, learning more, studying more, and trying to practice the divine principle in our daily life because as I say, this is a way of life. This is not a mere religion for because everyone when I go outside, even there are people who will ask me, "What is your religion?" So, why is religion an issue? Because per se, hindi ako masyadong ganong klaseng ka-internal na tao. But I really just very much not just impressed but really like your mind is like enraptured to this truth na yeah, this is it. This is the answer of everything. Without, of course, understanding this, mm, there is no answer for all these conflicts and for these problems that the world is confronted with. So this is the only way. This is the only answer naman talaga. Wala na talaga. Kaya nga namin, I think I have mentioned in one of our studies na um, wala nang ibang aside maliban lang kung may bagong truth na i-reveal si God. But other than more than anything else is ito na talaga yung ultimate truth for me. So there is no reason for people not to believe and especially this time when this truth has been like unfolded in detail already. So there is no reason for us to like get derailed in a way. But of course, I can understand that everyone has his own person of restoration, but I also believe that all of us can really be able to help each other. Na, talaga. Clearly. And to the right path without judging the person, without, being vindictive to the person. Because ako personally, I'm very vindictive at that time, way back when I was a lot younger. I'm very vindictive. That's why maybe I have to go through a difficult path for me to be able to understand more of this truth that we have. Kaya, this is my agony na every time I see brothers and sisters who seemingly are maybe having hard time, I wish I can really help. I wish I can really convey to them fully what exactly how difficult it is. If only they have the opportunity to see and understand, to see my mind and my heart, something like that. For them to not have second thoughts anymore, I wish I can do that. So this is what I'm also trying hard to do in my daily life of faith. Try to practice it. Admittedly, even to the present time, I still am yet confined with the old self in some ways or another. But yeah, at least trying hard na din ako na gagawin yung ng paunti-unti din. Yung mga natutunan ko, papractice na din sa buhay, sa buhay. Pero again, I would reiterate, it is really extremely difficult to get out from that old self. Once na you already been like parang naputos na bitaw ka kanang marag you already submerged to the realities of Satan. So that's why I can also understand people who are having hard time um, understanding this. It's not that I wanted to tolerate, but it's just that maybe I have a little, at least, little chance to understand the hearts. So yeah, just like Ate Josephine is saying, step by step, we are all on that same process, Ate. So don't worry, don't worry. Everyone is. It's just that we have our own individual facing depending on our efforts, on how are we going to really push forward. Kasi lahat naman tayo may kanyang-kanyang dala as per our ancestors, including our own failures. So hopefully we can always be able to, through these studies, we can really be able to help one another. And our meeting, I should say, is never a coincidence. So I am grateful because I get to know more brothers and sisters. I get to know we are extending our network in a way, sabing ganon. Because we are all essentially necessary for our growth and for our salvation. So, yeah. I think yun lang po. Thank you for
Yes,
the
thank you so
opportunity.
Yes po, you're always welcome po Ate Sylvia po. So, yun.
And in addition pala ate, of course, all these things is for us to be able to receive the Messiah. And the end point, of course, is yeah, we have to receive the blessing. Actually, for me, as I have realized way back, it is only after receiving the blessing can we really get started all over again with the right growing, equivalent to that of Adam and Eve prior to the fall. You know, because everything that we have to go through now is all but indemnity course. So we have to do well on our indemnity for us to be able to be more qualified and be able to shorten our growing towards achieving perfection of character, thus forming an individual formation foundation. Yung ma-inherit talaga natin truly yung heart ni God, yung will ni God, yung knowledge ni God. Becoming one of that of God. Becoming a true representative of God. So, yun yung mga rason bakit kailangan nating malaman ang history. Bakit kailangan nating matutunan yung failures ng ating human ancestors or ng mga central figures. It is not for us to be vindictive or to judge them, but for us to really learn and really deeply reflect, what can I do? Parang, kaya na po. Thank you!
Yes po, thank you so much po Ate Sylvia po for yan, reflection. Lastly pala, meron pa palang hindi natawag for that question po. I'm sorry, Ate Johnamy, please welcome po, Ate Johnamy.
Good evening
Yes,
po again.
yes, good evening.
Sorry. Hindi ko po umiiyak po.
Ba't kayo umiiyak, Miss Juno May?
Kaya mo yan, ga. It's okay. Feel mo lang yung heart ni God.
So, ano po? Why do you need to know the history? So, for me po, the history itself is symbolizes God's heart. Oh my God. Sorry po. I was, ano po, touched sa sinabi po ni Ate Sylvia. No, I want also to embrace other people po. I was thinking po kasi kung paano ko ba sila i-encourage? How could I win other people's heart? Yan po. Oh my God. Yun po, nagigilty po ako kasi parang ang unfair ko po na I know this new truth, but I saw my brothers and sister na nandun lang po sa labas. Para pong they're walking like a robot. Ganun po. So, I want them to know this history, to know also, to let them know God's heart, God's suffering, that the history is God's story, and that this history can really help us to know the better me, the better you, and the better us. So, the efforts of my ancestors, I am also really grateful that I know that I'm not alone in this journey, that my ancestors keep pushing me forward po, to know you po, to know God, to know Heavenly Parent, Heavenly Father. And I also know po na this truth really is the new truth, and that I want other people or other my brothers and sister na um embrace this. Yun lang po. Thank you po.
Yes, thank you so much po, Ate Janami. So, yun po para ano talaga yung history, no? If we really study the history, especially for our central figures, so this is the time for us to really pursue ourselves to really yung take ownership or gawin natin yung ano natin, yung way natin this is the right way for us to really push ourselves to nga hindi na siya para di na siya mag-repeat at the same time para ma-learn natin yung yung mga pinagdaanan ng mga mga ancestors. So last one, may I ask you, Herwin, if you have some additional?
Okay, good evening.
Good evening po.
Good evening, Sir Andy. Good evening, doctors. So I'm grateful tonight and open your heart and mind. Just a few for 3 minutes. Yeah, I just remember one of the leader shared to me when I was first year, and then I still remember it now, first year 2010. So he said that um, what is the reason why are we here? What is your like bakit na-meet natin yung movement? And ang sagot niya is feel the heart of God. And yeah, to feel the heart of God, it really touches me kasi sabi niya, if God is happy, and then we don't need to do this kind of witnessing, ganun, training. If God is happy, right? When we study the history kasi, we could feel the heart, how painful it, how devastated God's heart. We could understand that well. We could be able to do things na yung makapagbigay ng saya kayo. So yun lang. I hope that studying the principle through the history, we could be able to know kung gaano kapursige si God kung maibalik tayo sa Kanya. It actually, it hurts actually. Just laughing, but it hurts actually. Naiintindihan mo yun. And then if you are a parent, if you are a filial son, daughter, kung naghihirap yung parent mo, hindi mo ba tutulungan? Tulungan mo talaga yun, kahit anong nangyayari. And I hope we could understand the heart of God by studying the history. We could change our lives so that God would be
Yes po, thank you so much po, Kuya Herwin. Kuya Julius, meron po kayang additional po?
Okay, good evening again. Why the question there is why, from the question, why do we need to know the history? So from the history, we learn that if God commanded a person to do this mission and he failed, God's providence will be prolonged. So also, we can see God's even simple mistake, the indemnity is very big, quite big. For example, in Noah's family, Abraham's family, just a simple mistake of cutting the dove into two, but his descendants suffered for 400 years. So if we have to reflect, if we are the central figure, we have to fulfill our responsibility. Because not only prolonging the providence of God, but also our descendants will suffer greatly. Second, if we are standing in the position of Cain, we have to unite absolutely with our Abel. Just like also the failure in Moses' time, no? The disunity of the people. Also with the Messiah, the faithlessness of the believers in Jesus' time. If we are the believers, we have to have absolute faith with the Messiah. So also we learn from here that God is absolute. That whenever this person, whenever the central person failed in his mission, God would not hesitate to replace him, even though regretful. So his will is absolute. But of course, it requires human portion of responsibility. And the other thing is the, uh, the ultimate purpose of the providence of restoration is to lay the foundation for the Messiah. Why? Because it is only the Messiah that could remove our original sins. Why Satan can work with us? It is because of these original sins. That's why we have we have uh, these conditions. Like for example, these two conditions: foundation of faith. This is indemnity conditions to restore the foundation of faith and foundation of substance to for us to lay or receive the Messiah. So here we can understand the ultimate purpose of this providence of restoration, which is to lay the foundation for the Messiah. And we have understood that it is because the only way that we could sever our relationship with Satan is through the removal of our original sin. And that can only be possible with the Messiah. No one, but only the Messiah. So that's why we are fortunate in this era that we have understood this and we have clear understanding of our purpose in life. And from that foundation, after receiving the Messiah, that ultimately we could fulfill the purpose of creation, reach the level in which we could become one in heart with God. So we have this kind of teaching, and yeah, this is our responsibility to share everyone, because God wanted all that gives this agony of God, because he lost everything because of the fall. And that's also one thing that we should um, we should fulfill. For example, in Adam's family, okay, they failed in their foundation of faith, disobeying God's command, and they fell. So that's the thing that we have to restore through indemnity, to keep that faith. So meaning, if we know that God's commandment is don't eat the fruit or don't commit sexual sin, then we have to absolutely do that by keeping God's commandment. So reversing the failure of Adam and Eve, and ultimately that we could receive the Messiah. So that should be uh, the thing that we should, more importantly, that we should think of how we keep that commandment, because that is the very result of this um, this reality that we have now. And we are so grateful that we have our true parents that could bring about restoration from this fallen state into that original sin state. That's all. Thank you.
Yes po, thank you so much po, Kuya Julius, for that. Meron po ako i-post.
Can I add? Ano lang, 2 minutes lang siguro.
Okay po ate.
Okay. About why do we have to learn history is that uh, in learning history through the revelations of the divine principle as was taught by uh, true father is that what do you think is the greatest what do you think is the that is the mistake of not accepting that they made a mistake and that they did not repent. Diba? Yun. That's the reason why it's very hard for God that's the reason why na uh, nagtatagal tayo eh. Kaya ang tagal-tagal ng restoration eh. Kasi uh, our ancestors uh, did not want to take responsibility. That's the reason why palaging sinasabi, paulit-ulit na sinasabi sa atin, uh, we should fulfill our responsibility. And fulfilling our responsibility is accepting that that we are sinners and we must accept na galing tayo dun sa fallen lineage of Satan. Without being able to accept that, we will never be able to repent and that we will never change from our old ways. Yun yung problem. That's the reason why para maintindihan natin to. And then so that we can also appreciate, also we are to learn the divine principle at the history so that we are learn to appreciate the hardship of God or the difficulties and the sadness and the longing for God in order to save humanity no matter what. And continuously, sa totoo lang, when I'm reading Restoration, sa totoo lang, umiiyak din ako. Parang ganun. First time na binabasa ko yung Divine Principle, I was not touched with the yung sa part 1. Pero nung binabasa ko na yung and what catches me on the principle and the teaching of Reverend Sam Yong Moon is that yung long course of history, yung prolongation niya, grabe, ang awang-awa ako kay God. Umiiyak ako kasi, grabe, from Adam and Eve, mistake. Sa anak niya, nag-mistake. Tapos, tagalan na naman. Tapos, wala na naman, parang gano'n. Ano ba yun? Parang, actually, umiyak ako nun. The first time I have read the Divine Principle and yung prolongation ng history, doon ako nakuha ni God eh. Doon ako nakuha ni God doon eh. Sa prolongation, awang-awa ka kay God kasi nga, ginagawa na lahat ni God yung magagawa niya, pero grabe, mag-mistake pa rin. As in, ganun yung naging successful ka na nga dito sa foundation of faith, then again, sa foundation of substance, hindi ka pa rin mag-success. Parang ganun, di ba? Naging successful na nga, naging successful na nga si Jacob. Tama, Jacob, di ba? Both foundation of faith and foundation of substance. Pero late na, di ba? Late na kasi nauna na si Satan, di ba? Nauna na si Satan. Meron ng family pa lang yung success mo. Nandun na national level na yung kamila. Parang you know how yung ganon. Kaya that's how I know. That's the reason why we need to understand or learn about history. Kasi din yung dapat hindi natin inuulit. Makita natin yung, ma-appreciate natin yung hardship ni God and the central figures. And how long, di ba? How long? And even, alam naman natin na after Jesus Christ has come, yung pagdating ng second coming ng third Adam in the person of the Reverend Samuel Moon is that it's a prolongation of history already, di ba? And that's 2,000 years. Diba? So, yun. Of course, naiiyak pa rin ako. Naiiyak daw pa rin ba ako? Of course, naiiyak pa rin ako. Pero, yun yan. Kasi there are different ways of crying. And I have learned in my younger days, I have learned to cry without the tears. kasi hindi ko kailangan mapakita. Parang gano'n. Ayokong ipakita na umiyak ako. So, yun. So, I learned that as a young girl. So, yun yan. Yun yung to answer the question, yun yung pwede kong sabihin. Pero we must always remember na not to be, we must be able to reflect immediately and then accept na hindi naman tayo perfect. But from that, even though dapat kapag we make mistake, di ba? We should be able to overcome it and tumayo tayo dun sa mistake na yun based on the principle. Hindi dapat tayo, our mistake must not defeat us. So, our mistake must make us a better person. Yun yung dapat, that's how to reverse the, yun yung reversing na, yung reversal ng course. Diba? Our mistake must make us a better person. Hindi tayo magdodwell doon at sasabihin natin na, oh, nagkamali ako, wala na akong silbi kay God. Ganun. Hindi dapat ganun eh. So, make it, to make yourself a better person. And, for sure, God will, by experience, God will try to, will help you because of that. Yun lang po.
Yes po. Thank you so much po, Ate Relina. It's already 10:14. Sorry. Naglakas na po tayo sa oras. Before I forgot, before we end this.
Sabi ko, speech lang.
Attendance, picture ata.
Yeah, let's have a picture.
Picture. Sama si Rin. Sama. Kaya, sama yung DF ko. DF ko ba yan? Ex ko pala yan.
Kaya Randy. Di pa po.
Tama, ex po.
Akin na po.
Ex-boyfriend.
Hindi, ex ko siya.
Okay, let's have okay, small heart brothers and sisters. Hannah, Dulcet.
Marunong kumuha ng heart.
Tiger naman yun.
Okay, another one. Anong kalis niya? Nakalimutan ko. Sorry, nakalimutan ko po. Ibaragi siya ng 1, 2, 3. Lastly, Vision. Okay, Vision 2027. Sungni. Okay, thank you so much po, brothers and sisters po, for your time po. Okay, may request po, Kuya Julius, to lead the closing prayer.
Please join me in prayer. Our loving Heavenly Parent and our victorious true Prince of Heaven, Earth, and humankind. Good evening once again. We are so grateful for our session this evening as we have discussed your providential history, and we've learned a lot from this, and we have to reflect on that we should really fulfill our responsibilities so that your will not prolong, and your agony, your heart that was devastated by the failure, especially the fall of our first human ancestors. That's really lost everything. Your ideals that would have been established by our first human ancestors, Adam and Eve. And also in the providence of restoration, starting from their family, that also the struggles still there, and it prolongs to Noah, to Abraham, and to Moses, and now Jesus, and now to our Lord, the Lord of the Second Advent, our true parents. And you've been working hard behind all this to shape this history to really end up to really bring about in laying the foundation for the Messiah. And victoriously, it was realized 2,000 years ago in our Lord Jesus Christ, but then the people still did not believe, have that faithlessness to our Lord Jesus Christ that sent him to the cross. And how, again, your heart was devastated with that. And now we can see these foundations that ultimately realized with our true parents, with the victorious foundation of our true parents, that we could be able also to follow this path and be able also to participate by also fulfilling our responsibilities, especially as we are given this tribal mission. And we are so grateful that through this course, that somehow we could understood your heart. And that would really make us also to really strive hard to fulfill our responsibilities. And we have to really think of bringing our tribes to enlightenment. And we are so grateful for this opportunity that we could study your words clearly, understanding it by heart, and that we could become that incarnation of that word. We could be able to attract people, bring about people, bring life to the people, to bring back to your bosom. And that has been the heart of our true parents. Really bring everyone back to your bosom. And now giving this blessing that could ultimately return all of us to that original sinless state. And we are so grateful for this because we have learned, and now we are with our true parents, directly educating us, directly guiding us. And the only thing is we have to have that absolute faith, love, and obedience with them. Unite absolutely, especially with the vision of our true mother now. In this period of 2027, we could really bring about contribution, especially in bringing success in our tribal mission. Thank you once again for this evening, for this productive session that we have with our brothers and sisters, and we pray that we can really keep it inside in our hearts, and make us our strength, our motivation to really start in bringing success in fulfilling our responsibilities. Again, thank you for everything and offer this prayer and report in my name. My wife's name, Julius Santamis, Clayton St. Claude Bessel family. Aju.
Aju. Yes, thank you so much po. Please give a hand for our Heavenly Parents and your parents, for the lecturers, for the participants. Thank you so much po for your time. Hope we learned a lot for this evening's lecture. So yun po, good night everyone. Please don't forget pala sa other reflections. Bye po.
Good night po.
Good night po. Thank you so much.
Night.
Sa sino yung hindi pa po nakapag-register po ng anong tawag dito. Sa blessing po, please register na po kayo.
Keep safe,
Yung sa March 20 nga deadline.
Be well
Safe
all the
everyone.
time.
Thank you so much po.
Hi, Christinette.
Hi po, Ate Sylvia.
Papahan ni mo dayoy?
Uy, buyag.
Yung anak si Junome?
No po, spiritual sister ko po siya. Pero anak ko po yung tawag sa kanya kasi magka-organization po kami sa Catholic po.
Gwapa sa mga taga Bohol oy o gugwapo.
Buyag.
I'm very proud of you talaga. All of
Buyag,
you.
buyag.
Kami si Kuya
Go,
Herwin.
Kuya Herwin.
Si Kuya Herwin ang pagkakanyag.
Taga Bujol ba ako?
Ako
sa
taga
Gudjud
Banin sa Bukidnon, Kuya. Joke.
Paadat
Okay.
ako sa Bohol. Paadat. Bye everyone
Bye-bye po.
po.
Good night po.
Good night. Thank
Night.
you, Kuya Julius. Thank you, Kuya Randy.
Night. Thank you.
Thank you. Nakalis.
Everyone.
Night po, Kuya Patrick. Thank you. Kuya Ate Sylvia. Thank you po.